Hello, everyone. I am Amyth Banerjee, and welcome to another episode of What the F, where F will always be embedded finance. In this series, we discuss topics and ideas around embedded finance and with industry experts who bring a different insight in each episode. This series is brought to you by Zwitch, where we help startups and businesses create new avenues for businesses with embedded financial services using our banking APIs. After some of our previous conversations with guests with whom we discussed building personal finance management tool, building a neobank for NRIs, and the most recent one, understanding the money movement in the logistics industry. All of these episodes provided a rich perspective that revolved around open banking and how embedded banking can play a key role in building these products and solving some of the pressing challenges in the respective industries. In this episode, we decided to bring a different perspective from what you've usually seen in the series. Here we talk about designing for financial services. And on that note, happy to introduce our guest today, none other than Deepa Bachu. She's the co-founder and CEO at Pensaar Design, a design strategy and innovation consulting firm. She's been a design and product leader across a career spanning 2 decades and also has been a mentor and advisor for startups. She pioneered the design thinking, at Intuit, where she helped build some great products herself. And I had the privilege of working with her briefly during the early days of my career. So thank you so much, Deepa, for taking out your time and being a part of this conversation.
It's my pleasure. I want to say I've spent more than 2 decades, but look who's counting.
Okay. All right. So, yes, more than 2 decades, a little correction over there. But yes, now we will just start with the conversation. And the first thing is, so Deepa, you've had a very interesting professional journey all this while. And one that has inspired me and a lot of folks in general. It would be great if you could share with us some of the highlights from your journey at Intuit and what are the different products that you work on?
Sure. So specifically about Intuit, I think I spent half my career there playing multiple roles. I started off by playing more of a UX role, a user experience role, for the flagship product Quicken. And interestingly, I was at Intuit when the financial institutions were really disrupting Quicken. Quicken was a personal finance product, or rather is a personal finance product that keeps track of your money, your net worth, and all of your investments, basically all of your finances. And mostly, a lot of customers bought Quicken to understand how much money they have. And, these are the pre-internet days where people would have to keep track of how many checks they wrote and really keep a tally of how much money they have. And right away in the early 2000s, we had financial institutions just basically giving that information away so easily and electronically. And so there was this huge disruption that we were facing because a lot of people bought Quicken to keep track of their finances and see how much money they have. So it was really interesting times then to sort of say, okay, what do we do? We're getting disrupted in the market. We have a loyal customer base of, people using the product over several years, but we were getting disrupted. And that was when I was introduced to the jobs-based methodology, Clay Christensen, Strategy, and that really changed the way I thought about products. You serve your customers. You serve your customers to solve a particular need. And you want to do it better than anybody else, better than your competition. And so that was a really, useful experience early in my career to help me as a product leader, as a designer, understand not only the customer jobs, but how they want to have it done, what success looks like to them, and how you can use all of this to be competitive and grow your business. So rarely do I think designers talk about design as the means to the end of growing businesses. We talk about empathy, we talk about intuitive interfaces. But for me, it was that early in my life where I understood the importance of solving a real problem solving a problem so profound that you're willing to put money against it, and as such, able to grow businesses because of your loyal customer base. So that was one early lesson. Fast forward, I worked on QuickBooks, and QuickBooks was mostly a accounting software for small businesses, and we had created it for the US market, basically North America, I would say, and we were looking to localize it for other countries. When we opened the product up so anybody, anywhere could buy the product, we realized very quickly that we had people from 110 countries using the product, right? So you went from 2 to 110. And that was actually really interesting learning for a product, right? To open doors and to see how creatively your initial users, your early adopters would use your products. We then went on to say, you can't do one country at a time, one language at a time. You've got to figure out how you can use systems like user contribution systems to really help scale your product and to do that in a global fashion. Again, another misnomer is most product people feel like, the cultures are different, languages are different, there's going to be so much that's different. And that's true. But what we found was that 80% of the needs are the same. It's the 20% that's different versus the other way around. And so you've got to design for that 20% variation, knowing that 80% is the same. So you've got to sort of understand the culture so that you know what 20% needs to be modified. But it's not like your product has to be completely redone. So that was also a really interesting lesson. And then I want to say, the cherry on top for my Intuit experience was really something that's very close to my heart, Fasal. It was a product that helped farmers make more money for their produce. It was design thinking all the way. We were practicing design thinking. In about 6 weeks, we had the product out in the market with a small set of 20 to 30 people using it to see what value we were adding with that solution. It went on to be much celebrated. It's a Harvard Business Case study and things like that. So I'm really happy to have contributed to evangelizing design thinking and pioneering it, or help pioneer it at Intuit as well. So I would say those were the 3 highlights of my Intuit career.
Absolutely. I think coming to the topic of design thinking, I think that's the reason why I was able to discover Pensaar Design also back in 2017, especially with the DT Summit, which we'll talk about it later in the interaction. And, which brings me to the next question that I had in mind. You've been a design thinking practitioner, and how do you see design thinking play a role when it comes to designing products to provide financial services?
Yeah, luckily for us, we've had quite a bit of experience in the financial domain. Pensaar tends to be agnostic to verticals and domains because we just want to solve wicked, gnarly problems, right? It doesn't matter what domain, but we've had the good fortune of working with quite a few companies when it comes to finances. More specifically, banking. We had the opportunity to work with Diebold Nixdorf. On their SaaS journey, they were looking to provide, SaaS solutions to their banking enterprises. And we were able to sort of identify the customer journey, not only the end customer journey, but also the employees of the bank, how they sort of monitor and engage with DN's solutions to provide the best possible experience for their end customers. Banks tend to be so complex and rather siloed. So it was really interesting to be able to help the company put together their entire CX for the customer experience, end to end for them, and help them sort of fill the gaps where there were gaps to be filled. Design thinking is helpful. You want to understand customers. You want to not stop with the end customer or not stop with the client, but understand your client's customers. You want to understand all of the influences that affect decisions, that affect information, that affect money in and out, and really understand that entire ecosystem. So I think with design thinking, we were able to very quickly have some good conversations with their large banking customers and large banking enterprises to really understand what they're looking for and how they want to use Diebold's solutions to create those great experiences for their end customers. Design thinking worked extremely well, and we use customer experience or the CX journey. That was what we were mostly focused on. To give you another example, we were working with a startup that just had a concept of how can they help create, digital storefronts for banks so that banks can be more accessible, more approachable for end customers. We did a lot of research to understand that people are afraid of investing money. They'd rather leave money in their savings accounts or checking accounts because they don't know what investment options to choose. As soon as you go to a bank, the first thing is they ask you about your risk appetite. And you're like, I don't want to lose any of my money. So then they suggest you put it in like FDs. So we realized that we were asking the wrong questions. We weren't asking questions that people can answer. And a lot of times, especially like the young millennials, they would rather just keep their money away and just put it in their savings account because they didn't want to admit to their parents or to their loved ones that they didn't know what option to choose. And in India, a lot of parents recommend real estate. And that wasn't appealing to millennials, right? Somebody that they've heard of that is a good investor and has done well in life by being thoughtful about how they invest money. And that's the only person they want to talk to. This discovery process helps you understand how you can create banking solutions. In this case, how you can create banking solutions that are not intimidating or alienating in a way, but actually helping you grow your money. I'll give you one other example. We've got lots of examples of work that we've done, but I'll give you one other example of migrant workforce. So we were working with Dwara to say, how can we help migrant workforce, people that don't have enough money, how can we help them save, right? So imagine, if you will, you're just earning enough to and barely making ends meet. Our challenge was, how do we get them to save? And so we used a lot of participatory-driven, innovation techniques, design thinking from a perspective of getting constant feedback, iterating, prototyping. And I think if we hadn't done that, I don't think we would have gotten the solution. And it's rarely, this feature helped, create a compelling product. It's often how your product makes the customer feel. And one of the things that we realized through Dwara was, that constant money in, money out battle had beaten the happy out of money. They weren't happy they were earning, they were just more worried about how it's already spoken for. And so what we did through the product experience was we put the happy back in the money. We helped them sort of celebrate the fact that they do have money and that there are options, there are financial instruments that they can use to help put away money for themselves. These insights we got through research to, building empathy, identifying these insights that then helped us inspire innovation. But we had the humility to rapidly experiment and ensure that we had the right solution. Often it's not the first solution that works really well. It's a variation that, customers helped you build.
Yeah. So that was really wonderful. I think examples do help us understand the seriousness of all of these challenges that we otherwise see, and it's really great to see that you've already worked on these instances where you're solving for say a migrant set of a user or a different set of demographics and different kind of users. They have different type of needs. So it's very interesting to see that if you've already solved for all of these things. Now that brings me to another interesting question. So we always have this thing in India, at least particularly, that our banking experience in India is like a one size fits all. That's how it has been kind of always projected. So what do you think about that? That's the first question. And why or how should banking interfaces be different? And how profound do you think this effect will be?
So, Amyth, I want to start off by practicing what I preach, right? Which is starting with empathy to answer your question. If I think about all of the work that we've done, the relationship an individual has with their money is very personal and very different. I mean, I haven't really met a lot of people that think exactly the same about their money. So I think that relationship is very personal. The way people work with their money is different. What they think about their money is different. And so if you're trying to create an experience that is then digitally communicating or interacting with your customers, it has to be personal. And I don't mean dear blank, right? It really needs to exude that I understand you, Deepa. I see what you're doing, Deepa, and hence I'm suggesting this. In the pandemic times, all of us are watching more OTT platforms than we care to admit, right? But it's constantly pushing you things that it thinks you will consume or like based on what you've done. Banking needs to be exactly like that. Why do we, even if you want to download a statement, every month I have to download a statement to send it to my accountant. That's all I do in that, set of screens. Every time it asks me the same question. What is the duration? Why can't it know that that's what I'm doing? I mean, technology has just sort of run away with the ability to personalize. Just look at social media, just look at the OTT platforms. Banking needs to be better than that because your relationship with money is so much more deep as compared to entertainment. And I think that there we've really fallen behind, and I don't know that I can point to one or two sort of banking experiences and say, that was awesome, right? Which is why we end up hiring financial advisors, because then they know me, Deepa, versus, my account number. So I think it's about time we got more personalized experiences. Things that are right for me based on what I do, based on what money I have. Why ask me for my risk profile? Why not intuit that based on what I'm doing with my money? So I think there's a long way to go. And which is a lot of opportunity for startups, for large companies to truly innovate and create that experience that's very personal, because money is personal.
Absolutely. I really like the analogy that you drew with the OTT platforms. The way it is kind of it's tailoring the experiences of how we watch movies or how we kind of go about entertainment. It's quite to designed around the user. So and I think likewise it also needs to kind of reflect in the banking services equally. Totally on board with you on that. So, all right. Thank you, Deepa, for sharing your insights for these questions and bringing in a design-focused perspective for our embedded finance conversation that we usually have on this series on What the F. And with that, now we reach the fun part of the episode. Not that the interaction before this wasn't fun. This part is much more fun because this is where we get our guests to define embedded finance according to them, and they get only 30 seconds for that. So, Deepa,
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm as ready as I ever will be.
Okay, so your time starts now.
I think you need money for everything. Money, like I said earlier, is the means to the end of what you want to achieve in your life. And so finances and money is embedded in everything that we do. So I think that, embedded finance needs to be about doing everything that I am, being who I am, and affording the lifestyle that I hope to live out.
All right. That
I don't know
was
how that was.
no, but you were able to kind of pull it off in 30 seconds, and see, that's the whole idea, right? Like everyone brings their own different perspectives, and it was really interesting to hear from you about how you see embedded finance. It's a true thing, like you mentioned. Wherever there is money involved, there is the idea of embedded finance. It stems from that whole thing, like money movement, and so it is all already a part of our lives. It's already embedded in our lives. So I think that particular part really came out well. And yes, now before we end our episode, I wanted you to share a little bit about DT Summit, which is the flagship event by Pensaar Design, and that happens annually and is pioneering design thinking in India for everyone interested. I can vouch for sure it is one of the best ways to get started in design thinking, having attended the very initial event when it started, but would love to hear it from you.
Yeah. No, like you said, Amyth, we found design thinking to be so transformative in the way that we've innovated for products that we've owned or our clients' products. And so our sort of tradition is every year we evangelize design thinking. Usually we do it at the IM with NSR Cell, but this time everything is virtual. We try to bring in people from different walks of life into one room for 3 days and really help them understand how to apply design thinking. It's not a masterclass, it's an application based, a lot of fun. We focus a lot on the interaction that we have as well as the learning. This year it's all virtual, of course, and we're doing it over 2 weeks, 10 hours. So it's quite the challenge for us to create that experience that otherwise is easier done in person. But we're doing it it starts at the end of this month, end of July, over 2 weeks, 9 to 10 hours. And it's going to be highly interactive. So we would recommend that everyone registers, but being virtual, we've got small number of seats. I think we have about 10 to 15 open now. So please register quickly. Go to our website, pensaardesign.com, and go to the events page to sign up.
Absolutely. And just for the sake of convenience, I will also drop the link in the description so that whoever is watching this video, they will also be able to join in if they would love to be a part of this event. So awesome. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Deepa, once again. And make sure to subscribe to Zwitch YouTube channel. We are coming up with live event on 31st July to get you all introduced to the possibilities in the world of embedded finance. The link will also be in the description again. And yes, we'll be back soon with another episode. Cheers.